This will be my final reflection. I haven't made one in about 2 weeks. Um, I've just been a little bit concerned with a number of issues in my own professional life. So I apologize for going dark. Not that it matters all that much. These reflections were not a required part of the course. I wanted to say, first of all, I'm not altogether pleased with my own performance in the delivery of the course. It was new for me, as you know, online. It was the first time I'd ever done it, and I was not very pleased with it. And it has, of course, nothing to do with you, with the students. It has to do with the delivery method itself. I find it rather alienating. I think some of you have heard me speak to this, so I'm not going to go on about it at length. I wanted you to know, however, that I will be talking to the university, I think on the 8th of August, about the course. Now, I think they want to ask, how did it go? How did the students do? And I'll be able to provide all of that information, but I'm concerned that if you have any concerns about the structure of the course, the topics taken up, how it was organized, let me know so that I can communicate it to the university. Anything you might want to say in terms of evaluating my performance, that's of course your own business, and I have no business there at all. So fire away. I can tell you in my own assessment of myself, I'm not pleased with how I did. But in any case, I have to let that go. I wanted to say one thing about the structure of the course myself, and that is, I find it's upside down because you start with leadership and you end with transformation. That, to me, makes no sense at all. You should start with transformation and then go to leadership. Why? Because what you're attempting to do is, in my opinion, if you understand these topics and their interrelationships, what you're trying to do is to explain transformation in clear and comprehensive terms so that you can then go to the leadership literature and say to yourself, which model of leadership meets the requirements of transformation? Now, we never did get to transformation. It was tacked on at the end. All I had to say about it, and I would confess right off the bat, I was never very clear about it myself. But as I see transformation, I'll say this for the last time. If you reform a thing, you change it in certain respects. Those respects may be quite deep, fundamental respects. However, you're not changing the identity of the thing. So after you reform it, you have the same thing in place. There may be different features to it, different dimensions or aspects of it, but the thing is identifiably the same. Whereas in transformation, the thing's not the same. It's a different thing altogether. I heard just the other day, I thought this was a useful and very direct and concise way of putting the point. Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist, was saying to the world, in essence, and it's not like me to cite her, but I think she's quite right on the mark here. She said, well, we can't play by the rules and change the world because it's the rules that need to be changed. Now, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about transformation. Yes, she's right. The world needs to be changed, right? But it needs to be changed in such a way that what comes after the change is different in essence from what was prior to the change. That is what transformation is, because I don't think we can reform our way out of the issues that we face as a species. Now, when we were together in residency week, I said that. that I doubt we will survive as a species. And I think people thought, oh, how sour. You know, why be so dark? Well, I don't know. I get up every morning, I read the news, and just on the climate side, just on the climate side. So forget about plastics in the oceans, nuclear war, because everyone's going to build their nuclear arsenals. That's very clear. So, you know, are we going to attempt to arrive at some kind of international collaboration on peace and security? No, we're not. We're going to have the same power blocks jockeying for position, rattling their swords, and building their arsenals. That's what's going to happen. That is what is happening, right? Meanwhile, capitalism, neoliberalism, which again, some experts describe as a zombie theory, is not properly described as a zombie theory. If neoliberalism is a zombie, I'm living in a separate reality, because in my reality, I see neoliberalism everywhere still. So how do we deal with, go to climate changes? How do we deal with climate change? We check our carbon footprint. Individuals pay attention to their carbon footprint. That's how we deal with climate change. So the 100 or so corporations that are responsible for about 85% of all of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, never mind the other carbon-based gases, we don't pay any attention to them at all. No, it's about Doug Dollinger or Tim Smith or, you know, whoever. It's about individuals. In other words, the community itself can have no response, right? It's about us. Oh, well, I don't know, drive my car less often, fly less often. These are the solutions that British Petroleum has been spooning out to the public for the last 20 years. By the way, the whole idea of a carbon footprint comes out of BP. So even our language in which we discuss these issues has the strong imprint of the industry that's causing these issues, and that is known for years, decades, that it was causing these issues, right? So no one will stand up and confront the power. So we talked about hegemony. We don't have to go back there. But what I would say to you, to students in this era of our history, why do I go on about the economy? Why is that so fundamental? Because if you're interested in transformation, that's where the power is. That's where real political, social, and economic power sits. It sits with concentrations of private power. That's where it is. So why is it we cannot move forward on climate change? Our governments have done almost nothing. Why? Ask yourself, why is that true? Right? Why is that true? Look at a separate issue. Look at housing. Why is it there's a housing crisis in Canada? Could it have anything to do with the explosive, largely unregulated investments in real estate that blew apart the international economy in 2008, from which we're still reeling, right? Now that's about the fire sector, right? Which is insurance and real estate and finance. And the only reason I keep going to the economy is just that. That's where the power is. So a glaring example of this is the United States, because I think the only proper description of politics in the United States right at this moment is that the United States has become a plutocracy. It is hook, line, and sinker in the hands of private wealth, private concentrations of wealth that we would ordinarily call corporations. There's no doubt about it. And I mean that, there is no doubt. If you look at the data, so look at Martin Gillen's at Princeton, if I have his name right. He's been doing research for 25 years, showing how the preferences of the vast majority of Americans are not represented in the political culture at all. So it might surprise you to know, for example, that in the United States, the overwhelming majority of people support gender-affirming care. The overwhelming majority of Americans support gender-affirming care. And yet you have, I don't know, 28 states that are passing laws to prohibit it. It is nothing short of astounding. The vast majority of Americans support a national health care system and have for 50 years. And still no movement at all. Why? Because the political institutions are owned. They're owned. The politics is working for the 1%, right? And it is here in Canada as well. It's just more muted, right? It's not as obvious. But look at what the oil sector is doing, right? The oil sector is saying, oh, look at us. We have a green future and we're going to lead the way. It's complete garbage. And we're still giving the oil patch how many billions of dollars every year in tax reduction or, in supports of various kinds? It's astounding. But that's where we are. And our liberal friends will talk forever about reform. And reform will not do it, because reform means accepting the rules. And it's the rules that have to be changed. Otherwise, the human species will not survive. And I don't think that's debatable. I do not consider that a matter of debate at all. I think it's more or less assured. So, in other words, if we don't change how we're managing things, we will not survive. Period. You can see it. The most recent, and I'm not here to stir up fear. I just think it's a little dose of reality. If you look at the latest climate projections, they're horrifying. The Gulf Stream is apparently not only slowing down, it's coming to a halt. Now, if that happens, Europe will become a very different place. And so will the central United States. Now, I advised all of you to take a look at Steve Keen, because Steve Keen gives you, I think, a far more accurate scientific picture interpreted in broader terms, social and economic terms. He gives us a much broader picture than the very slight and superficial accounts we get in our media all of the time. I don't think we have an honest media. I think they sugarcoat just about everything that they deliver. So back to transformation. The whole point about transformation is, given that it's a requirement, that we can no longer live with the same rules, we have to change the rules. That is transformation. So the question then becomes, what kind of leadership supports that effort? So if you put transformation first in this course and described what it is and went into it in detail, which we never had an opportunity to do, transformation was always off in the distance because it's placed last in the course, and there are very few readings for it. So I'm going to recommend to the university that they put transformation up front, because that is the problem. So that's always a good question to ask, right? What is our problem here? Well, our problem is transformation. We can no longer live under this set of rules. We need to change the rules. That is transformation. But writ large, what kind of leadership supports that? One thing's very clear about transformation. There are a few things that are clear about it. It's uncertain by nature, because everything's shifting. As you change the rules, you have no rules, right? So you need to transition from the old set of rules to the new set of rules. And I know I'm being very simplistic here in my formulations, but that's in essence what you're contemplating. If you're contemplating transformation, you're contemplating a change of that nature. So you need a leadership that can support change of that nature. What's the nature of the change? It's unpredictable, it's uncertain, and it's uncertain in a sense that the economists would call Knightian uncertainty, meaning you can't even guess the probabilities. You have no idea. Things just emerge, and they emerge without any probabilistic indications, meaning you can't see them coming, right? There are a whole variety of things, of course, as you know, that you can predict, right? Because we can subject phenomena to laws and they become regular and predictable. But there's nothing regular about transformation. There's often a lot of conflict inside it, a lot of confusion inside it. There are very few levers of control. You cannot manage your way through it. So this, as I see it, is the most fundamental challenge the entire species faces. First of all, the transformation itself, the creation of new rules that allow for a world that collaborates, that is unified, that puts people first, that focuses on human needs, that focuses on human welfare. All of those different points of focus are involved in the kind of transformation I think we seek. The idea of playing by the same rules is, I think, a dead end. It will destroy us. If we keep, for example, trying to build a world based on the creation of commodities, if we define wealth as the bundle of commodities we produce, we're in an awful lot of trouble. The idea of growth as limitless, that's an absurd idea, but it's an idea that's still very much in place, right? So when we turn to the topic of transformation, we see how extraordinarily large this problem is. And I don't have any simple solutions, nor do I see at this point in time myself any political formation that could even begin to grasp the nature of the challenge ahead of us. So when I look at this course and I look at the world, I see it this way. I see the need for transformation, the need to define that, the need to spell it out in some detail so that we know what we're talking about when we talk about transformation. It will involve much more than the transformation of an economy, right? Even that, however, will go very deep. It will have to go to private property. In the means of production, it will have to. We need to think of a new way of going about the production of wealth, rather than turning the production of wealth over to a minority called owners, who then control it. Because in giving owners control over the production of wealth. We give them control over, in essence, over our politics, over our social order. That's, again, why I keep going to the economy. Why do I keep going there? Because that's where the power is. It's, you know, I don't remember the name of, you will all have heard this, the famous bank robber, Billy Jones, or whoever it was. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is, right? I know that's very simplistic, but why talk about the economy? Because that's where private power takes place, right? That's where we turn over an awful lot of public decisions about how we seek to live in communities to a small minority who make those determinations for us. It's hard to see how influential corporations can be. I'll give one final example here. Our road system in North America. Why is it the Japanese have an incredible public train service? The Europeans have train service, public transportation. So you can zip around Europe, you can zip up and down the island, main island of Japan, no problem. But in North America, you got to use a car. Now you might think, oh, well, that was the choice. That was a, you know, we decided to build cars. None of that's true. What happened is the automotive industry lobbied the government and said, you know, we can sell millions of cars if you can build thousands of roads. So in the 50s in the United States, and it happened in Canada, there was an equivalent type of action here. We built, you know, the national highway system. We, by the way, tore down all of the public transport in major American cities, including this city I'm from, Rochester, New York. We had a trolley system, and they tore it out and built the highways. So you look at the modern age and you think, oh, the congestion, you know, you look at Los Angeles, oh, the congestion is so horrible. How did we do this? Well, the answer to that question is we did not do this, right? In essence, we did not do this. It was the automotive sector that did this, and it did it for its own gain. And we were pawns in that game. And we're in pawns in most games. So I think if we want to take charge of our future and make key decisions about how communities grow and thrive, we have to take it out of the hands of those minorities. And I mean here, in this case, the plutocracy, right? The people who own the means of production. Call them what you will. They have incredible power in our society, and we will not be able to affect transformation until that power is removed. I think that's simple. Now, when I say removed, I'm not preaching violent revolution. What I'm saying is we need new ways of structuring the production of wealth that do not involve the creation of private tyrannies, right? Of undemocratic organizations that shape our economy and our society. We've always had this dilemma, right? In liberal democracy, we have this thing called democracy, which is supposed to be about people making decisions about their lives. And then we have this thing called, we have democracy on the one hand, and on the other hand, we have this thing called the economy. And the economy is outside of government, though it's regulated by government. The idea is we preserve this private domain for the creation of private wealth by private individuals, right? And on that model, we will never see transformation because it will be resisted. and we will not have the power to affect it in any case. So we need, and again, this isn't a palace revolt. We don't have to get the pitchforks. What we have to do is figure out how we as a society, as a set of communities, how we go about producing the goods and services we require. That's the fundamental economic question. And there's no reason to think, none, that the answer has to be, oh, a private economy on a capitalist model. That's the only possibility. We need to grow up. And that means we need to use our imaginations, right? If we seek to change the world, we need to think beyond the limits of our past thinking. So that's the challenge of transformation. That's where I would have started the course. The resilience literature, I think, is related, but I don't think it belongs in a course on transformation and leadership. I don't. I think it's a digression. So I don't know Professor Ney, and I don't know why she structured the course the way she did. But having been through the material, that's what I would say. I would put transformation first, define it, figure out its components, and then go to the question of leadership. Maybe resilience could be used as an illustration of new forms of leadership emerging in the day-to-day. But I'm not even convinced of that. On the readings, I would put different readings into the text. I don't like Dugan. I may as well say that to all of you. It was difficult for me to read Dugan. It was a textbook approach to leadership that I just found very dull. So that literature, the resilience literature, I could appreciate putting myself in that world, but I wasn't convinced that that world belongs in the world of transformation and leadership. It belongs as a component, I have no doubt, because it is very important to community development, the development of natural resources and nature itself. So those are a few thoughts that I have, and maybe tomorrow we can talk about all of this so that when I talk to the university, I can convey any impressions or thoughts that you have. So with that, I'll cancel and I'll say goodbye. If I don't see all of you tomorrow, I'll say goodbye now. And again, my apologies for a course that could have been better. And I have to take some responsibility for that. I'm not going to take it all because I don't think I'm the only one responsible, but I will take responsibility for my part of it. So I wish you all well. If I don't see you tomorrow, you can, send me an email anytime, say hello. It would be good to maintain some kind of contact. So hang in there, take care. I'll be correcting the papers next week. So take care.